Hello, my fellow theatre people. It is Shaketube 2019, where three wonderful booktubers, who I will put down in the links down below because each time I try and do this introduction, it just gets longer and longer, are hosting a read-along of Shakespearean plays. Each Saturday, I'm filming this on a Sunday, but each Saturday they're going to come out with a video of individual plays that they've picked. So that's good. It's going to make for nine plays, and then in the final Saturday, on the September the 28th, they'll do videos on the Two Gentlemen of Verona. So I am tagging along as Spirit Carrier number 2 with my own videos. I'll see exactly how enthusiastic I am. I didn't actually intend to read all the plays this week, but I ended up doing that because Coriolanus sort of sucked me in. Damn you, Steve Donoghue, for picking that one. However, this is not a video about Coriolanus. That will hopefully come later in today, the 8th of September, Sunday, where I am tagging along because just with my work schedule, this is my first of my days off. But this is going to be about King John, which you'll find this is Lukas's pick. He is one of the triumvirate, who are hosting this read along. He picked King John, which is one of William Shakespeare, English Elizabethan Jacobean playwright, working sort of from like his working life about 1589 to 1611 is like his sort of working life. It's, dates are really always fuzzy with Shakespeare. This is one of his history plays, where English history plays, sorry, where he is kind of going through English kings, historical kings. Someone like I think you get someone like you get Macbeth, you get Lear, and it becomes a little bit more kind of quasi, kind of mythical, kind of general stories. That's my understanding. Whereas you get something like King John, you get the King John, which is actually, it's interesting in Shakespearean plays, is set much earlier. King John's reign was from 1199 to 1216, and a lot of his other plays, starting with, I think it's Richard II, start in 1399 to the overthrow of Richard III at Bosworth in 1485. I don't know if that includes Henry VIII in there or not, but we'll push that aside. So this is about King John. King John, who is probably known for popular culture as the bad king in Robin Hood movies, because he displaced Richard the Lionhearted, who indeed was also a actual figure who's it's actually questionable whether maybe he was in England once, but this is the whole time period where the English and the French were much more intermingled. Of course, they got really intermingled when William the Conqueror came over, conquered England. Basically, what we have is English today is a mashup of English French, and obviously a whole bunch of other other languages. But there's that. So, but thus, as that fact, you kind of go about 85 years later, I believe, and England is sort of the rulers are in England, and they're ruling good hunks of France. And what you have in this book is King John, who has taken the throne. However, he has a nephew, Arthur, who also has a claim to the throne, and France is backing Arthur. It's very intermingled. That you indeed at a point in this play, you have marriages between the French and the English to kind of seal peace deals. These are people who are very much entwined with each other. So yes, King John. The plot of this play: King John goes to war with the French after they claim that his nephew should be the king instead of John. There is a whole thing where they almost get peace, but the church, the Roman Popish Church, comes in and ends up excommunicating John because he won't recognize their choice for the Archbishop of Canterbury, which we'll get back to later because that's where John is also, that's tied up in something else that's big that John is known for. I'm going to put this down. It's very heavy. It's actually it's funny. It's more of a this is my university complete works, which I do read sometimes, but actually for the most part, I found a very cheap Kindle version where I go through the plays, and I'm not for the amount of depth I know I'm going to get into these plays, the amount of Wikipedia scholarship that I'm going to put into these plays. I just got a version that claims it was kind of based on the Riverside version. It has no notes. It's super bare bones, but I can carry it around and read it. Okay, so that said, yes, John gets excommunicated by this emissary of the Pope. He and that emissary says, French, you have to go to war against John because he is, he's the devil. He's the devil. And indeed, war is rejoined. King John forces capture Arthur. King John says to his dude, kill Arthur. There's this very much kind of Snow White and the Huntsman scene where the guy's like, he gets moved by the pity of poor, young, innocent Arthur. He very much seems to be written as a very young child in Shakespeare's play, even though historically Arthur was actually much older, which I guess it makes sense of why he would then actually kind of spare him for pity's sake versus if, okay, he's an adult and I'm a henchman, I'm going to kill the dude. But he doesn't kill him because it's a Snow White and Huntsman kind of a deal. But he lies to King John and says he did. John says, to the nobles, he died. The nobles revolt because, you killed Arthur. This is terrible, which also doesn't seem to kind of, it's an odd kind of a sense. You can see that there's a different issue maybe that they're dancing around in here. I'll get to that. Then the henchman says, well, actually I didn't kill him. It's like, John's like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, well, you go get him and we'll let the nobles know and we'll smooth things over. However, in the meantime, next scene is Arthur's up on a roof, kind of climbing around and falls over by accident and dies on this thing, gets discovered by the very people that they were running to say, everything's okay, let's smooth it out. So the nobles rebel against him. John gets poisoned by a monk and dies. The French retreat, and Henry, John's son, becomes king. So I guess it's one of these plays where you can see that Shakespeare is kind of following kind of historical record, obviously selecting stuff, making Arthur younger than perhaps he was. There's also the big issue in this play of not the big issue in this play, but probably from us looking back on it, the other thing that King John is known for is the Magna Carta, being forced to sign this, became known as the Magna Carta by the barons, which basically set down which became, whether through actuality or just myth or how it became read, as a king's responsibility to his subjects as much as the subjects have responsibility to him. That before this, King John was ruling basically as might makes right force, where as we go forward, there's somewhat of a contract where the king actually becomes subject to his subjects, the laws, and maybe his subjects' wishes to a very small degree at this point. This is the embryo which kind of spills out of it. Now, this is a concept of Shakespeare is writing in the time of Elizabeth and of James I. These are the monarchs who are in control. They are not fans of the Magna Carta. People start bringing up the Magna Carta, and they get persecuted for it. That is a hot button topic. So it is not brought up in this play at all. Interestingly enough, the whole thing about this archbishop that John won't confirm, this is another historical figure, never actually mentioned in the play, Stephen Langdon, I believe it is, who does get chosen by the Roman Church as the Archbishop of Canterbury. He ends up because John basically kind of reconverts back and says, I will become like a servant of the church. He actually, this guy, Stephen Langdon, gets in, and he becomes one of the major leaders with the barons in coming up with the Magna Carta. So it's one of these things of you see sort of jumps and gaps in this play, and you wonder if this is something that would be kind of could be read into by in contemporary time of, oh, we know what they're talking about here. What King John is actually one of the things he is famous for is this whole thing of like, what are the kind of the political setup that is starting to bubble up that maybe kings don't have, it's the absolute power and don't have they have responsibilities to their subjects, and we're getting kind of burgeoning, the strength of lords, but there's also mention of kind of rights of even lesser people. Now, whether if that was actually in there or whether this got read in by political thinkers later is an interesting idea. One of the other things which I will actually bring up later, it's in Emma Smith's This is Shakespeare. She has a section on King John. I will get into this in a separate Shakespeare books video, which I'm theoretically also doing today. But she talks about how Shakespeare does a really good job of reflecting the many very varying different accounts of history, taking for example there Arthur, because Arthur was older. B, there's some theories that yes, basically in the Chronicles by Hollingshead, he's listed of either King John had him killed or he accidentally did fall. There's a variety of different things of who killed Arthur, and this kind of jumble here of Arthur is condemned to death, but the guy doesn't kill him, but he still ends up dying, falling off a roof somewhere. It seems so random, but it's actually a good way of putting those two interpretations of either King John was like a super villain, and indeed you have the thing of like, did John order his death? It's like, well, we put that in there. Maybe he ordered his death, but he accidentally died by falling off a roof by accident. It's one of those things where you see like, why is it so messy in here? And it's like, it might be messy in here just because of different interpretations of history that Shakespeare is putting into his play. This is the cover, pretty cover, which I can possibly get of Emma Smith's book. This is Shakespeare. God, put that down. But it's a very action as Lukas. I actually have watched Lukas's video on this. It is definitely a very kind of it's got a very action-packed play. There's a lot of incident in it. You get is warlike John, and it is warlike John, and in his forehead sits a bare-ribbed death, whose office is this day to feast upon whole thousands of French. Which I love that, and in his forehead sits a bare-ribbed death, which is like, that kind of thing. Which is interesting. You have that kind of very martial image of John, because John in this play is quite a weak character. Maybe perhaps kind of very prototypically dominated by a very strong and domineering mother. Indeed, this play has a lot of female characters in it who are sort of raging because things are unhinged at this point. You have his mother who is like sort of pushing him towards like, we have to defend our right to rule. Like she is the iron fist here. You have Arthur's mother, Constant, who's fighting for her infant son. This is making Arthur young, is like you bring up Constance as she is the force behind poor kind of child Arthur. You've got, there's also the wonderful bastard who Lukas talks about in his video, who is this kind of sarcastic figure, kind of poking at all this stuff of legitimacy. You know, he's a bastard. He is literally illegitimate. Gets, he turns out to be the son, a son of Richard the Lionhearted. He seems to be a completely fictional, made-up character, but he's inserted there in Shakespeare to kind of point out how bullshit all this stuff is, how basically none of you people, like, who has the right to rule? Maybe I, as this kind of really put together, self-aware guy, should be the one ruling, but that's not going to happen, because we're going to do this by the kind of nonsense thing of nonsense idea of blood of blood, or we're going to do it by the nonsense thing of the church who excommunicates John because he's politically not doing what they want him to do, and then re-embraces him and re-crowns him. Is sort of like, it's one of these, and gives him legitimacy. And it's like, and this is also a play that is very, you know, because it is written at around the time of the Spanish Armada and of Catholic Europe coming for Protestant England, is, you know, we're showing the, not shying away from showing the very venal side of this very much kind of man-made institution of the Roman Catholic Church. And indeed, this play ends on this note of England. England is embattled. We've been, you know, whether this happened before, whether this was written before or after the attempted attack of the Spanish Armada, where the Spanish sent a fleet of, I believe it's like 130 ships against England, which luckily for England was in bad weather, and probably most of the damage to the Spanish, the thing that actually killed off the thing, was bad weather, not any prowess on the English part. But at the very end of the play, you get, this England never did, nor never shall, lie at the proud foot of a conqueror. But when it first did help to wound itself, now these princes are come home again. Come the three corners of the world in arms, and we shall shock them. Naught shall make us rue, if England to itself do rest but true. And it's like, there's very much a, like, England the Proud. These are the plays where you think, oh, is this a Brexit play? We could be talking about, this is Brexiters, and saying like, oh, you know, England never did nor shall lie at the proud foot of a conqueror. And it's those damn French and all those other Europeans that are trying to take away our England. Kind of, it's one of those, the things about Shakespeare is he is wonderful at laying out all these different competing things, and making you ask questions about them, not saying like, oh, one is great and one is not. I know that some people view Henry V of, oh, he's a great war hero, and the last reading I have of it, he's a manipulative, violent bastard who is using kind of whooping up kind of war spirit for his own political gains. I see him as a much more cynical, crappy character, but you can see him used as you know, kind of breakfast time for me, both ways. As that, you know, Shakespeare's history plays, I think most of his plays are always, they're contemporary with his time, but also seem to resonate in our times. If you want to look at this as a pro-Brexit play, I'm sure you can look at it from the exact opposite as well. But that was the fun stuff. So yes, I have run on, and I was hoping I was going to make 3 separate videos. They're all going to be short little videos, but you know that's not going to happen. I'm just going to get super enthusiastic. So another video will be coming very soon.